1460 Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
Hey, Racing for Heroes fans, it's Brett Morash. It is May 14th. We're here on WVOX 1460 AM, streaming worldwide, and of course on Facebook Live for those of you watching there. Very excited to be back up here in New York after an amazing weekend of shooting machine guns and driving cars down in Virginia. So just an exciting event, and for our nonprofit, we did very, very well. So thank you for all of you who came out. So without further ado, though, we have our first guest on the line, Xavier Reese. He is a former Force Recon Marine. For those of you who remember what that is, it's all Marines think they're elite, and those are the elite of the elite. And he goes by X, which is, like, first of all, the most amazing call sign ever. He couldn't have planned that out. But he is now currently the President of Overland Outreach. So Xavier, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How you doing, Brett?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And I appreciate you being Force Recon. My first ship, Harlan County, back when we had tank landing ships, we had 2-6 Mu aboard, but the Force Recon guys got to push off our ship into the Moog back in the day.
So yeah, one of my old team leaders was one of those guys in that team.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. You really appreciate those guys and what they do. Of course, I think that the movie Heartbreak Ridge sort of is the Marine Recon movie, although I don't think they call them that in the movie, but that's the one I remember most, with Gunny Highway.
That's right.
So yeah, and in fact, we actually, interesting enough, we had on a guest not too long ago, Duff McDill, who worked on that movie and is very good friends, Mario Van Peebles. So small community here. So yeah, so Xavier, so tell us, how did you get in the Marine Corps, and once you got in the Marine Corps, how did you end up at Force Recon?
Well, I always wanted to be a Marine. My uncle was a Recon Marine in Vietnam, and so I just kind of grew up with that urge and listening to his stories, and always just was something that I always wanted to do, was join the military. And my uncle being in the Marines, that was kind of my way I went. I initially went in and was going to go in the infantry and got talked out of it by the recruiter that was doing aviation ordnance.
Oh wow, okay.
Which, once I finished school and got to the fleet, I was like, this is not what I joined the Marine Corps to do.
Yeah.
This is not what I wanted. And so I talked to a sergeant of mine that used to be in the infantry, and she was like, well, only way to get out here is you can go run a Recon Indoc. They'll take anybody from any MOS if you pass the screening. And I was like, really? So got to Okinawa on a UDP and went to my career planner and got a hold of Force Recon that was there at the time, and worked my way up to Camp Hansen and ran an Indoc and passed it. And got orders back to First Recon when I got back from Okinawa.
Well, you must be the only person ever to go from aviation ordnance into Force Recon. That's got to be some sort of record.
I had my captain was like, you know the infantry doesn't live like we do, right? Like, you really want to do this? I was like, 100% I want to do this. Then as I was going through like all my recon selection and DRC and all that stuff, like, I definitely kept it on the down low that I was coming from the wing.
That is really cool. Yeah, no, I would too. But at least you got to go to a school, though, that I think is kind of cool, because dealing with ordnance is amazing. My second ship was an ammunition ship, and we used to have all of the aviation bomb loads and stuff. We could do an upload for an entire carrier.
Right.
And so we were always carrying, sticks of bombs and things like that. So it was always amazing. So yeah, so
it was a cool school.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So then, how long were you in Force Recon?
So I was over at First Recon Battalion, and then I left active duty and went to Fourth Force, which is the reserve component.
Yeah.
And was there for 10 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
So did a total of about 12 and a half years in the reconnaissance community, and then in 05, 06, we attached to Second Force and pumped out for OIF GRS.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a long time. That's a long time to be in the Force Recon world. I mean, you got to, especially for reservists, I mean, you got to keep physically fit in order to do that job, because when you get activated, you're back to Force Recon for reals.
Yes, like the standard doesn't change. When you show up and attach, you better to be able to perform just like the active duty guys.
Absolutely. And I see from your bio too that you served with a 3-letter agency. Can you tell us anything about that, or not so much?
Yeah, I was in the reserves. They only took half the company during the invasion, and I was kind of bummed out, like, whoa. And I wasn't on the list when they created a handful of people that went. And so I just through a friend he was like, hey, there's a contracting gig. You want to get going? I was like, sure, send me the link. Sent in a resume and my bio, and literally in like 5 days, they were like, hey, can you come out and run a screening for us? I was like, sure.
Very
when
cool.
do you want me to leave? They're like, can you be on a plane tomorrow? I was like, sure. And literally didn't even know who I was going to be working for until I finished a week-long selection. It was like, okay, I know it's a government entity, but okay. And I finally I was like, oh, all right. And started doing 60 to 120, 180-day trips with them initially in 2003.
Gotcha.
And did that basically from 2003 to 2015, through 15, and then left that, well, obviously with my deployment with the Marine Corps in between those years.
And so that brings you to where you are now, right? I mean, you're the president of Overland Outreach, which I think you're doing some amazing stuff with the veteran community. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm living out here in Idaho now, and there's a lot of help out here for veterans, and there are a lot of people doing a lot of good stuff for them. But I didn't really find anything that particularly was, there's events and this and that, but actually trying to take and help out guys, you know, that are suffering with PTSD and, you know, the suicide rate being through the roof for veterans. And so, you know, I have a text string with all the guys from my platoon, so it's all on one big text string, and that thing goes off like multiple times a day.
And night, probably too.
Like it's a free fire zone. There's every kind of things that would just send people running for their safe spaces these days.
Right.
But, it's hilarious. It's a place to vent. And then if another guy is not like hasn't responded in a while, people will be like, hey, have you heard from so and so? And if no one's heard from the guys that were close to him, we'll get on the phone and give him a call and see how he's doing and if he's struggling or whatnot. And sometimes they're just like, I've been busy with work, or they're like, no man, and like people are like, cool, do we need to get a couple guys to fly up to your place? You know, what's going on? How do we help out?
Yeah.
What do you need? And so I was just looking at that, and the whole world's trying to get a small glimpse of what veterans go through when they're coming home. Where in the quarantine, you know, our community, everybody's missing their community.
Yeah.
And you know, veterans come back, and depending on who you are and how big of a unit and where you came from, guys move from all over the country and lose contact with people.
For sure.
And we're really just trying to get guys back out in nature and create, you know, a two-pronged approach where we're getting out in vehicles and doing, so it kind of gets you back in that convoy feeling, which everybody, no matter what your job was, has experienced the convoy environment in the war zone. And then, you know, just fostering that with better memories of going out, having a good time, working as a team, camping out, eating some good food instead of IEDs going off.
Right.
People. Go ahead.
No, I said right. That's absolutely true. I was agreeing with you.
Oh yeah, and you know the second part is just building that community in your local space. So guys, you get come out and meet up with each other, and then you go experience something that, you know, everyone trades off their numbers, and that's another lifeline. Or just like, hey, when you're feeling down, like you're not alone. You're not the only one there. You can come out to these events. You can come out and hang out whenever, and feel free to talk like you're back in the military. Like you're not going to make anybody blush. Everybody here in combat may not have the exact same experiences, but have similar experiences. So no one's going to look at you weird if you say something like, "Oh my gosh, that happened." Like they probably experienced something similar that you did.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and I'm truly appreciative of that. You know, I think when I think of the programs like we run at Race for Heroes, like Motorsports Therapy, you know, what we're trying to do is get a veteran to an experience where they're replicating some of the risk and the adrenaline rush that they're seeing in a race car that they would have maybe seen when they were on the more kinetic end of things. And I think what you're doing, where you're placing people in a convoy, that's, you know, there's no real risk there. You're not going to hit an IED, you know, but you have people. I'm sure you had buddies that they had a very, very hard time driving on the roads again because they were always on the lookout for something. And this way, you're going like, no, we're going to be doing the convoy thing, but it's, you know, we're going to go out hunting, we're going to go out driving trails, we're going to be, you know, camping, all that sort of stuff. those sorts of things allow people to kind of associate that with a good memory rather than a crisis memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so how did you start this? I mean, was it just something that just kind of fell into it, or?
Yeah, it just I was sitting around, and I mean, like a lot of veterans, we get back, like, I have a job on the side that I'm doing, and doing this on the side, so like no real, like, that loss of that sense of a mission, like a purpose, like just not getting up in the morning, going through the motions, and just going to work, coming home. Like, man, I miss being part of something bigger and like having something of true meaning to do every day as my job, and when I get up in the morning. And I was like, well, just racking my brain with a buddy of mine. I was like,
sure.
I don't know what I want to do. I want to do something, but I don't know what. Like, well,
right.
we truly do care the most about like our own community and our veterans. Like, what can we do with that? And just started talking, and like, well, thought about a little bit about doing like the fecal line therapy, but then it's like, well, that's a lot of maintenance, and then it takes care of the horses and feed and all that. Like, well, trucks, we do it in trucks. That's a little more mobile. You can get guys up there that, amputees or in a wheelchair. You can still get them up, put them in a truck with a chair, and take them out with you. And so that's really just where it came from, like looking for that next mission.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think we're actually friends with some of the same people. Dusty Jones there, right? Up in, I think he's in Portland.
Dusty's been a big help. Met up with him probably a couple months back, and he's just been a wealth of information and a great point of contact, and just helping out wherever he can.
No, Dusty's the man. I mean, he's been great, and he's former Special Forces, as you know. And that's another thing too, is that you don't care, right? Like, someone could be Special Forces or someone like me that's just a regular old ship driver, and they're still welcome, right?
It does not matter if you're a veteran, if you're want to come out and you're struggling, like, hey, come on down.
Yeah, for sure. So no, that's great. And then so if someone doesn't want to look you up, as we kind of get ready for our next guest, Xavier, where do they go? Where would someone look?
So we got our website, www.overlandoutreach.org, and we have Overland Outreach Instagram. And then if anybody just wants to get in contact with us, our email is overlandoutreach1021@gmail.com.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I appreciate that. And so, Xavier, real quick, tell us what's been your favorite outing, though, as we kind of go on our last minute with you.
So our last outing was we just got rented out an entire campsite along the river up here in Idaho, and just made it open for, hey, this is where it is, pull in. If you got a overlanding rig, pull that up and set up camp. You just want to bring a tent, come in your own vehicle. There's space and room, and really people just showed up and we hung out. One guy came in with like his he had an old Wheelie's Jeep.
Oh wow.
He was in the infantry in the Marine Corps and during the Gulf War, and he just was a wealth of information on that, was giving everybody a little class on everything on that thing, and everyone just hung out. We provided all the food, and just,
that's really cool.
Yeah, hung out.
Well, before I let you go, I got one Willie's Jeep thing. You know those tires they use where it's got like those little cutouts, the way it's kind of set up?
Yep.
It's actually designed that way so that it's the same tread pattern going forward or backward, so that it would confuse the Germans back in World War II. That's why that tread pattern's like that. See, little known Racing for Heroes facts out there. So
absolutely.
I don't want to call it Stump the Marine, because I'll get punched in the face eventually for that. So no. But Xavier, listen, seriously, thanks for being on the show. We're looking forward to talking to you again, and hopefully have a chance to catch up with you in person at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, my friend. I'll call you later. All right. Be well. All right, everyone. Our next guest is Douglas Terrell. He is an actor who has a one-man show, so he does it all. But more importantly, his show is called The American Soldier, and he's performed in over 15,000 audiences and veterans in over 16 cities and 11 states, including the Kennedy Center, Off-Broadway, Library of Congress, and the American Legion's national headquarters, as well as Amnesty International. He was nominated for an Amnesty International Award. But what I really like about what Douglas does is that his show is based on actual letters from their family members from the American Revolution, all the way through the recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. and really helps bring catharsis to folks. So without further ado, Douglas, welcome aboard.
Hey, how you doing, Brett? Nice to be on.
It's great, and I think you're up in Hoboken, so you're also having this nice, lovely day.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful day. It's always a beautiful day in Franktown.
Never snows. It's always 70. Everyone's car always starts. Your dog never dies. No, I totally get it. It's the opposite of a country music song. But so tell us, how did you get into the show? Like it seems like something that just organically happened.
Yeah, well, I was always drawn to the material, but when we were heavy in the Middle East, I started creating the play about 10 years ago, and I just kept reading in the newspapers about guys who were coming back struggling, either financially, and back then we were just starting to hear about the stories of suicide and PTSD, and I just personally felt that no one really understood the true meaning of what their service was. So I decided to kind of create a small little play and kind of have express my voice as a performer, as an artist, and what I thought was going to be a one-time thing is turned into be a kind of a lifetime mission as an artist. Like you said, when you introduced me, like when I first performed it, I performed it for 8 people on the Lower East Side Manhattan Theater on a Memorial Weekend. And I was doing 20 minutes of what the version of the play is now. And I was sandwiched with another play. It was about, I think it was about her and her father and gaining weight. So it was like,
completely different.
She called me. She said, "Hey, someone dropped out of this festival. Can you do the play? Do you know your lines?" I said, "Yeah, I know my lines." "Okay, well, can you be here on Sunday?" And I said, "Yeah, Sundays are great." At that time, no one was taking, people just weren't interested in the material. And so when I performed it, 3 of the people were mine. The other 5 people, bless their hearts, I don't know who they were for. I after the show, we got a really strong response from the audience. They were very moved, and a sister to a fallen soldier who died in Afghanistan came up to me in tears, and she was very grateful. And she says, "I hope you don't stop. I hope you keep going." And that kind of gave me the mission or the confidence to keep pushing it. And I worked with my director, Patrick Willis, and we kind of flushed it out to about 55 minutes, and then I took it to Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and I performed it there, and that's kind of where the play exploded to, a lot of vets who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan, who were Scottish and who were British, saw the play over there, and they kind of, they resonated with it, and it kind of sold out in Scotland, and they did really well, and the people back here heard about it, and they heard about the nomination, and that started the tour, and ever since then, I hadn't stopped. Every time I performed the play, what happens is a vet or an organization connects to a veteran organization, someone who wants to see the play says, "Hey, you got to see the play, you got to check it out."
Well, and the Scottish probably appreciate the American Revolution part because they lost that one, but they have veterans. I'm just kidding. No, not really, not kidding. But you go back all the way to Revolutionary War. Like, so how does that work? I mean, who are you pretending to be, or who are you portraying?
Yeah, so I played 14 characters. I played men, women, and children. All of the soldier characters are infantry guys. Okay. And I made it purpose. I mean, I was drawn to a lot of letters when I first was creating. I was drawn to a lot of letters by George Washington, and a lot of letters by Adams and his wife Abigail Adams, who wrote really detailed letters when he was when he was serving. I mean, when he was in Europe trying to get the Declaration of Independence signed and created. But I decided to go the infantry route, and so I played different races, and they're basically letters. I used to go when I started creating it, I would go to the New York Public Library, and I would just start looking up stuff. And I look, and there's literally books filled with letters, with soldiers' letters and families' letters from every war, from every race, from every conflict, and anything that kind of resonated with me, I would photocopy it. And this is going back 10 years ago when you would photocopy, and then I would also, when people heard about what I was doing, and it became kind of like a central focus of me as an actor, they started sending me stuff and podcasts. And so as the play got created, what it is now. I play a father, I play a wife, I play a revolutionary soldier, I play a Hispanic soldier who's lost his leg, lost his arm, and I play a wife, I play a son, and the whole idea is I try to give a depiction to what service is and what sacrifice really means. But in between that, one character comes out 3 times. It's the only character that comes out 3 times in the play. And he talks about the 3 important lessons that he learned in the military. The first time he comes out, he talks about discipline. And the second time he comes out, he talks about teamwork. And finally, he closes the play with brotherhood. He shows a story about a soldier who died, and he wanted to be an Army Ranger, and he couldn't become an Army Ranger. So all the guys who were Army Ranger qualified, they took off the pin and they throw in the casket. Just shows that he was more than just.
And these are based on real letters. I mean, I had this similar experience here in New Rochelle, where I live. I'm the chairman for the Veteran Advisory Committee here. But when we were doing the World War I remembrance, the 100th a couple of years ago, I actually one of our World War I veterans who went to New Rochelle High School, local kid, actually didn't tell his parents. He dropped out of college, and then the first time the parents heard that he had joined the military was he had just shot down his first German fighter plane, and it made the news. So like they had like this interview with the mom, and these are 100-year-old, but it's kind of the same things now where you're like, oh, I didn't know you joined the military. And his letters back home, which the family still had because I was able to get hold of them, even though they've moved from New Rochelle, are very, very funny. And they're like complaining about the food, complaining about the boss, and then complaining about the airplanes. And if you were to take that letter and plug it in today, my buddy was the commander of a Air Force group that is sort of like the squadron group that it has that lineage from the one he was in, just happenstance. But I sent it to him.
Yeah, it's true what you're about to say, because when I was creating the play, you find scenes that are so. I mean, there were times when I was creating it, I had to remind myself what war I was working on.
That's right.
Because the messages were almost identical.
That's right.
And one thing soldiers all hate, and it doesn't matter if it was in the Revolution or even the Region War, they all hated marching. And they all complained about it. And marching was used as a way of training, but it was also used as a way for discipline.
Sure.
And so it was really interesting, and brotherhood was always a very powerful thing to learn. That every war got to a point where you started studying wars, these guys after a while that they're not even fighting the war. Whatever war they're fighting really for each other.
Yeah, and it's that shared experience that really kind of comes across, and that's why those bonds are so tight.
Yeah, and I think that's why the last monologue really stood out, because I basically say, the last character, one of the last lines, he says, talks about had that Army Ranger story, and he says, I realized after that moment, I realized now that I'm more than a part of amazing history. I'm part of a brotherhood. And he marches away to the bagpipes, and that moment right there, that beat really gets the audience, and definitely gets the military people, because it reminds them of their brotherhood when they were serving.
Yep.
And it tells them the beauty of what they've done and what it is to serve. What most Americans don't understand is to serve for something and with people, but that you're part of something that is greater than yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's country above self kind of stuff. So no, that's great. I truly appreciate what. So I guess if anyone is interested in following you, and we're going into Memorial Day weekend here, just a few days really. How can they follow you? Can they see what you do, and where are you going to be next?
Well, they can go to my website and can sign up my show's newsletter, which is the American Soldier Soloshow.com. And they can sign up for me. They can connect with me there. And I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Terrell. And my next show, before COVID, I had during the year of COVID, I had 7 shows booked, and not 5. I was able to still just go to Iowa and go to New Orleans. It's great. So this year is starting to get back up. So I will be in Dallas for the weekend of July 4th.
Oh wow, cool.
And then I'll head to Iowa, and then Arizona, and potentially California.
Oh, so you're really on the road. I mean, this is very, very national in nature. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I mean, again, you know, and all the bookings come from veterans who know a veteran, saw the play, recommended the play. And, you know, I think that with why the play has been successful, it's been like I was hearing you talking to your last guest. You know, it's a form of catharticism for them. You know, and they appreciate it that someone appreciates them and knows what their sacrifices and what their family sacrifices were. And I think for a lot of it gives them the permission to have self-mercy on themselves.
Yeah.
And it brings awareness to people who are not connected with the military. And I think, you know, those two kind of things those two messages that come across are what allows the play to keep growing.
Yeah.
Keep growing. So.
And I think that because it's so generationally diverse, I think that really matters. I mean, I think we talked briefly, and we're going to the last minute of the show, but, you know, we talked briefly about like the story of Ajax and the ancient Greeks. Those stories are the same today, you know. So, but anyway, listen, I am super appreciative of you being on the show today, Douglas. Again, can you put it out there? What's the website if someone wants to go find you? And then,
yeah, so the website is www.theamericansoldiersoloshow.com.
Awesome.
And then at Douglas Terrell. Google that, you should be able to find it.
Awesome.
Find it everywhere.
And we'll post that on our website today too. So, I mean, on our Facebook page. So, Douglas, thank you very much for being here. I wish you all the best and thank you for what you're doing.
I appreciate it. And to all the veterans out there, thank you for your service.
All right, everyone. So we'll be back next week. Looking forward to it right here on 1460 on your AM dial, WBOX.com. Take care, everyone. And the real Doug Lane will take us out. Take care, everyone. Bye. All right, good show. Thanks, guys.